All right, so this video is definitely a little bit more micro-based, I'd say, because one of the big places that I found it's been beneficial to draw graphs for my students is in market structures. And I think one of the reasons for this too is, using these different shapes and animations seen in some of the earlier videos, it's pretty easy to go through and demonstrate and show like, hey, the area of this box represents, total revenue, or the area of this box represents, profit, or whatever it might be. I think it helps them to visualize that a little bit more. Now, the reason it's a little bit more tricky is because we're not just dealing with straight lines with supply and demand. We're getting to some of those curved lines and like kind of more uniquely curved lines, like maybe like a marginal cost curve and things like that. But they're actually pretty easy to show in PowerPoint. And so what I just want to do quick is we're going to draw a graph and we're going to keep it simple. We're going to have a marginal cost curve, average total cost curve, and average variable cost curve. And like I said, they're pretty easy to show. So we have our regular blank graph right here. And what we're going to do again is we're going to go up here to insert. This time go to shape. And when we go to shape now, we're going to pick the one under lines. So one of the last ones on here, it's called curve. Now there's a lot of other curves on here. Like there's like curved connector, there's curved arrow connector, there's freeform and scribble. We're going to go to just regular curve though. And what we do with this one, I want to just kind of show you this quick, is that anytime you click, it creates a kind of like an inflection point of the curve anytime that you're clicking your mouse. And so you can use this to make all sorts of different shapes and stuff, right? And that's great. But the weird thing about this is too, you got to be careful, is because it's every time you click, you're like, well, how do I end it then? Well, you have to double click in order to end it. And so whenever you're making this shape, you'll click once to start it, click to add these inflection points, and then double click in order to end the shape. And so whenever we do our marginal cost curve, we can, kind of demonstrate that. And this takes a little bit of playing with just to kind of get it just right. There are some adjustment tools you can use to make it look a little bit more like you want. I don't know. For me, honestly, I sometimes just recreate it until it looks like what I want. So we're going to start a marginal cost curve quick. So I'm going to just click right here, kind of low. And then I'm going to go down to some sort of kind of curved inflection point, and I'm going to come up like this, right? And so boom, that was pretty good for my first try. We're going to call that our marginal cost curve. And I make my marginal cost curves red. I'm going to bring that up to 2.5. I'm going to round off some of these ends. And what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and, because I'm just going to, oops, sorry about that. I'm going to take this and I'm going to make this my label for marginal cost. I'm going to bold that and make it red. And so there we go. We have our marginal cost curve. That's great. Now, adding curves to that, we want to add in our average total cost and average variable cost. And I always like to do marginal cost first because it actually ends up making average total and average variable a little bit easier, because one of the key things we want to demonstrate on but by the way, you can resize this just by shifting it left and right. So that's a pretty easy thing to do, or up and down. So obviously you don't want it looking like that. Those are for simple adjustments. If you really want to get ambitious, you can right click the shape and go here to where it says edit points. And if you click edit points, it adds these black nodes on here. And what you can do is click those nodes and you can kind of stretch them around. And you can also change the severity of the inflection of the curve there and stuff like that. And I don't know. Here's the thing is, oftentimes when I play around with these, my curve ends up looking worse when I'm trying to make it look better. And so I typically don't mess with that. I'll typically just try to make it, and then I'll just kind of resize it in this way to get to what I want it to look like. And so I've got my marginal cost curve there, though. I am going to bring this up to 0.3 or to 3 point. All right, marginal cost, great. Now I want to add in my average total cost, and like I said, I like to do marginal cost first because it ends up actually making drawing those other two easier, because we always emphasize to our students that, hey, average total cost and marginal cost and average total cost intersect at the minimum of the average total cost. Same thing with average variable. And so what we can do, once again, is go up here to insert, and we're going to insert a shape. And I'm going to click curve. And I'm going to start my average total cost here. Now, the thing is, because we want our minimum to be at our marginal cost, we're going to make our inflection point be right at our marginal cost. So I'm going to take this after my first click. I'm going to go to my marginal cost curve, and once that little crosshairs overlaps with it, I'm going to click there, and then I'm going to come up from there, double click, And I can ensure then that, hey, these intersect at the minimum, right? So just so you can kind of see that a little bit more, I'll bring that up to 3 point. I'm going to change colors and roundness and all those fun things with it. And look, you can see that pretty well, or as far as our naked eye can see, that it does intersect it there at the minimum. I'm going to change this to my ATC. I'm also going to change the color so that everything matches up. Boom, we have our average total cost curve. If you don't like where that's at, hey, just, grab both of these. Wrong one. Grab both of these, and you can just kind of bring them down a little bit. Keep grabbing the wrong things. And you can just bring them down. Maybe I want my average total cost a little bit more like there. There you go. Now from there, maybe I want my average variable cost, and I can do the exact same thing where I just insert a shape, once again with my curve. Maybe I start my average variable here. I bring it to here, and then I bring it up a little bit steeper because of them fixed costs. Now this, if you notice, it didn't get the minimum perfectly there. And so what I can just do is kind of, once again, I can just kind of grab this curve, and I can arrow it over just so I like eyeball it to get it to that minimum. Remember, the minimum is going to be just wherever this curve is tangent to the bottom, like the bottom line of the shape box, because that's where it ends up being. So I click that. I'm going to change this. I don't know. I like doing like a lime green. Actually, that doesn't look all that great. I like doing a green for my average variable. We'll bump this up to the 3.5. Oh, nope, sorry, just 3. Round those corners off. And then I can also add my label. Take that, just duplicate it rather than ATC. Let's make that AVC. Once I have it as AVC, then I can change that color to the green, and it's awesome. And let's say maybe we're, playing around here and we're doing this with a perfectly competitive market. I don't know. I like to then, you can just draw on the straight lines. Let's say this is my straight line. I'm going to make that kind of like a goldish color. And let's say this is, our marginal revenue curve, right? And make sure that they all just intersect right there. And then you can go from there and, add in your equilibrium, add in those dotted lines. And like, you can even use the animations to show like what happens whenever this shifts up and down or whatever. Or like I said, you can use those shapes to demonstrate like, hey, like the area of this whole, I'm going to slide this over. Sorry. The area of like, hey, this whole box right here is my total revenue, and the area of this whole box is my total cost. Like, you can add all those in just with some of those same steps that I showed in previous videos. It all ends up being the same. Your lines are just looking a little bit different. But I have found that is like the simplest way to draw these graphs. And like I said, it makes it a little bit more visually appealing, because like I said, when you pull this out and you look at it, I'm putting text over here off to the left side, and the graph again is a little bit more visually appealing just because of the colors, because it's easier to see. I can do the animations, so I add in curves one at a time, and it makes it a lot easier for my students, and I can choose how much stuff is on there. Because like I said, sometimes there's so many curves on there, it's a little bit overwhelming for students to kind of soak it all in at once. And being able to set these up and make these in PowerPoint and change and add these animations just makes things a lot simpler. And so, again, that's my encouragement to you in making these graphs. Again, this works great for perfect competition, or if you want to adjust these for monopolistic competition, or whatever else you might have. It's really easy to implement. It's just a little bit different because, like I said, you have those curves instead of those straight lines. So happy graphing.